Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we'll be looking at the waters of Meriba, Numbers chapter 20, in our continuing study of the book of Numbers. Numbers chapter 20 and verse 1, Then the sons of Israel, the whole congregation, came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed at Kadesh. Now Miriam died there and was buried there. So here we have the death of Miriam. You remember we had a judgment of her back in chapter 12, but here is her death. There was no water for the congregation. So on top of the death of Miriam, this beloved sister of Moses, there's also no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves against Moses and Aaron. For Moses and Aaron, this had to be sort of a double-barreled put down, because their sister has just died, and now the congregation comes up against them. The people thus contended with Moses and spoke, If only we had perished. How many times have we heard this? If only we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why then have you brought the Lord's assembly into this wilderness for us and our beasts to die here? Why have you made us come up from Egypt to bring us into this wretched place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there water to drink. The real issue, there's no water. Then Moses and Aaron came in from the presence of the assembly to the doorway of the tent of meeting. They go to God, they fall on their faces, and then the glory of the Lord appeared to them, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take the rod, you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation, and speak to the rock before their eyes. There had been an instance before where there had been no water, and the people had complained, and Moses had been told, Take the rod and strike the rock. But here he's not told strike the rock. Speak to the rock before their eyes, that it may yield its water. You shall thus bring forth water for them out of the rock, and let the congregation and their beasts drink. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord, just as he had commanded him. So far he's getting it right. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. And he said to them, Listen now, you rebels, shall we bring forth water for you out of this rock? And actually it's God that's going to bring it out, but God had said, You're going to speak to the rock and you're going to bring it forth. So far he's right. Verse 11, Then Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock twice. And maybe nothing happened the first time. And he struck it again with his rod. And water came forth abundantly, and the congregation and their beasts drank. So Moses disobeys God, and yet God in his grace brings forth water, and everyone drinks. However, but the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Because you have not believed in me to treat me as holy in the sight of the sons of Israel, therefore you, and it's you plural, you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. He's speaking both to Moses and to Aaron. Because you have not believed in me as holy, you shall not bring this assembly. And in both cases, it's plural. Those were the waters of Meriba, because the sons of Israel, they meribad with the Lord. They ribad, or ribed actually is the Hebrew word. They contended with the Lord, and he proved himself holy among them. Now, next we see Israel dealing with Edom. And remember, Edom is that area to the south of the Dead Sea. They had been in the wilderness of Paran up near a place called Kadesh Barnea. And the Edomites, first of all, Edom is a very rocky place. If you go to Edom, and there's this one place where you go to in Edom, and you go through this long, winding trail, and it's through the rocks. You come to the end of the trail, and it opens up into a huge city. The first thing you see is the treasury, and there's a picture of the treasury. Now, the treasury wasn't there in Moses' day. That wasn't built until after New Testament times. But there was a city even back then in Moses' day. And the country of Edom was fashioned after the fashion of this city, where it's built in the clefts of the rock. Very secure. And the Israelites now come to Edom. And from Kadesh, Moses then sent messengers to the king of Edom. Thus your brother Israel has said, because remember, Edom is they're the descendants of Esau, and Esau and Jacob had been brothers. So your brother Israel has said, you know all the hardship that's befallen us, that our fathers went down to Egypt. We stayed in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians treated us and our fathers badly. You know that story. But when we cried out to the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel and brought us out from Egypt. Now behold, we are at Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Please let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or through vineyard. We will not even drink water from a well. We'll go along the king's highway, not turning to the right or the left until we pass through your territory. We just want to get past. You're sort of in the way of where we're going, and we'd like permission to go past. Edom, however, and notice this is not just the country but also the king, however, said to him, you shall not pass through us, or I will come out with sword against you. Edom says, that's fighting words. You can't come through here. Thus Edom refused to allow Israel to pass through his territory, so Israel turned away from him. And what the Israelites are going to do, they're going to make a long detour around Edom, from Kadesh Barnea, around Edom, and they're going to come up to Moab. Now, our outline of Numbers chapters 10 through 21 then. We had the journey beginning from Mount Sinai, and then there had been complaints about manna and food, and Miriam had been punished, and there had been a rebellion at Kadesh, ritual regulations, and there had been offerings that were regulated there, a rebellion against Aaron. And the pivotal point we said was Aaron's rod that budded, showing that Aaron was the leader. Then there had been more dealings with the priests. There had been rebellion against Aaron, but now more priestly duties. There had been more ritual regulations. This time it had been about the red heifer. There had been a second rebellion, and this is what we just saw of Moses and Aaron, where he strikes the rock instead of speaking to the rock. Aaron now dies. And notice how earlier, back in chapter 12, now we've already seen the death of Miriam, but earlier we had seen Miriam punished. And so the punishment of Miriam now is contrasted with the death of Aaron. And just to finish up this whole section, we're going to see complaints about manna and the food. We'll see that next time. And then the journey's end, where it ends by Moab. But now, when they set off from Kadesh, the sons of Israel, the whole of the congregation, came to Mount Hor. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor by the border of the land of Edom, saying, Aaron will be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land which I have given to the sons of Israel, because you remember you both, rebelled against my command at the waters of Meriba. Take Aaron and his son Eleazar and bring them up to Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments and put them on his son Eleazar, so Aaron will be gathered to his people and will die there. In Aaron we see the priest, but he was can we call him this? The disobedient priest. Not all throughout his holding of that office, but there was a disobedience. And so the role of priest is now passed on to Aaron's son, Eleazar. By contrast, we have a priest in whom was never found any blemish. He was without sin, and he was appraised by God as one who was pleasing in God's sight. And therefore he is fitting to be our substitute, not only our priest, but our sacrifice, who gave himself for us that we might live.